Welcome to the Property Mindset podcast, where I am Emma Howitt, mentor, investor, and your guide to building wealth, freedom, and personal transformation through property. Property isn't just about bricks and mortar, it's about building the life you truly desire. In this space, we don't just talk strategy, we deep dive into mindset, and something that I found is often missing in every other sort of business industry, but has been a really huge game changer in the professional property circles. So today I'm talking about the ripple effect, how responsibility impacts your entire property journey. So let's turn your dreams into actions and actions into success. Have you ever felt like the success or failure of your property journey is completely out of your hands? Absolutely, we've all been there, haven't you? So what if I told you that every decision, every action, every mindset shift that you make actually creates this ripple effect that affects your entire journey? So the ripple effect is really, just imagine dropping a stone into a pond or a big black puddle, and you literally, or a bath, if you're anything like me with kids, and you just see that the ripples going across, and this can really have far-reaching effects that we just don't consider when we're making what might seem like a simple decision. It may be the way we treat somebody when we meet them, and this can really have an effect not just on our immediate situation, but it might also have that long-term effect with regards to your success, your relationships, your reputation. So let's just kind of jump in about this ripple effect and how it might affect you in property. Every action, big or small, within your property journey will send ripples into the future. So let's have a think about this. So you might have a builder, for instance, who is you're working with them, they're doing your renovation for you, and things might not go so right. And this can really, cause some issues. And maybe you fall out with that person, but this particular builder was recommended to you, they've worked with other people in the area, and actually maybe it was some miscommunication, maybe it was, just one of those things that happened. And really, if you were to look at it in the cold light of day, perhaps you could have taken a bit more responsibility, but equally, perhaps the builder could. But the really long-term ripple effect of that could be that the builder might start saying that you were not a good person to work with, talk to other builders in the area, and it might become more challenging to get builders. So you might be seen as somebody who causes problems. And although at that moment it seemed exactly right the way you were reacting to that situation, it's really important to think of that pebble dropping into that calm pond and those ripples going further and further and further away, and consider how that one decision or that one action can really have an effect taking you forward. So really consider taking this responsibility. And honestly, I think taking responsibility for our actions is one of the most challenging things, because there are certain areas of our lives where we take responsibility, and there are other areas where we perhaps don't. We've all been there, we all have it. But what happens when we give away owning the situation is it completely takes away our power. And once we take away our power, that's where we feel helpless. That's where we, cannot work out ways to get over this. But if we really, again, take back that responsibility and know that you have some form of control, or you have all the control, by owning that, you own the outcome. You own being able to learn. You own being able to adapt. And you own being able to improve. instead of what we have all done as well is repeating those same mistakes. So what do they say? You know, if you carry on doing exactly the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So why people are surprised? I was always really surprised. I'd keep getting these same results, even though I kept working on my mindset and knowledge and all, and I was getting the same results, but I hadn't taken responsibility. I hadn't learned more and more about how I could take control of what was happening in my property journey, in my life, all of those kind of things. So let's sort of think about how it can be really dangerous to allow negative ripples to go across your pond, your life, your property journey. So we've all blamed others, haven't we? We've all made excuses, but some more than others. And you will be in groups of networks, you'll have friends, you'll have, people that you work with in the property industry who are just absolute blamers, aren't they? You can remember them. They blame everyone else. It's always this, it's always that, you know. And how does it make you feel? I actually now am really very aware of it, and I don't feel comfortable around those situations. In fact, my kids are always driven mad because I always come up with a reason why that could be good. So there is always a good with a bad. There is always an up when there's a down. It is a universal law. So you can always find something good out of a bad situation. And some of you might go, oh, well, that's not possible. But it is literally a universal law. By blaming, for instance, the property market, by blaming estate agents, this can really start eroding not only external trust, but also your own trust, your own trust of your own ability to make choices and to be able to work with people. So I have a little bit of a thing. I hope there are no estate agents listening, but I feel that there are some estate agents out there that are a bit lazy, and it's a bit frustrating. I feel they should do more to educate themselves on the modern property market. However, yesterday I met the most fantastic estate agent. He was what I can only describe as a modern estate agent. He did things very differently. It was a lot online. He did these days, open days where people would come and look. He did some fantastic social media coverage. And one of the things that I just loved is he had these people come round. And I think there was, let's say, 6 people came round and 3 made offers. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, that's incredible on the day. I said, how did you get them to make offers on that day? Was it a massive sales technique? And he said, I just literally have a framed QR code and it says, don't miss out, make your offer today. And you literally take a photo of the QR code and it takes you straight through. Again, all of these little things. How cool is that? And so that made me think, oh, I'm sure there are other really good estate agents like this chap out there. So that was a mindset shift for me. There are good and there are bad. Absolutely. And shifting the blame away from others and taking back that responsibility enables you to keep the responsibility, enables you to take the control, to enable you to grow and to see things in the right way. So responsibility builds reputation and momentum. So imagine that, in fact, I've had this, but imagine that you've had a deal fall through. And in fact, we can come up with so many options with this, but a deal can fall through and you could be very cross, very upset. And there are times when deals fall through, and even when you look back on it, it's hard to see how you could have done things differently. But what you do have control of is how you leave that situation. So I have had situations where I've sent emails, I want my money back, I paid the solicitor for this and you haven't done that. And how does that leave my relationship with that estate agent? On that particular occasion, I could have been very different. I could have had more conversations. I could have spent more time getting feedback. How do you think we could have done this differently next time? Rather than potentially burning bridges, you may not come across as professional, and they're highly likely to not prioritize you in the future for deals. So really consider that when you take ownership and stop blaming, as much as we may have an ego, and that's a whole nother story, but as much as we may have an ego and we want to show that we're right, actually, where is the benefit of that when you think about those future ripples and how that might affect us? So it's definitely something to seriously consider. So there's also the emotional impact of responsibility. So we kind of touched on this, but taking that responsibility massively reduces the feelings of helplessness or being a victim. I mean, we've all had pity parties, haven't we? Oh my gosh, oh woe me, oh it's so terrible, oh it never happens to anyone else. But actually, when you really understand about responsibility, successful people just deal with more problems than the less successful people. So the more problems that you deal with and you overcome, the more that you are successful. So every time you have a problem, if you're just going to go straight into victim mode and pity parties, even when there may be very good reasons to feel sorry for yourself. So I'm not saying that these are not major issues. I'm not saying that there are things that happen to us that aren't unfair. You know, you may have a JV partner and, you know, everything was going really well, perhaps for a year or two. And then things change, people change, people do silly things. And suddenly that relationship is perhaps falling apart. So do you again feel like the victim, or do you take responsibility? Do you take control? Do you build your own confidence to know that you do have the power to change those outcomes? So it's really useful, I think, at this stage to kind of reflect on a mistake or perhaps something that you perceive to be a failure. And it's great to write these things down, write it down. And I just identify one thing that you could have changed and how, in reflection, you can take responsibility even in the aftermath of it and make a choice to move forward, understanding that new way of making a change. So I would really ask you to, in every situation that you are in your property journey, is to take responsibility. And one of the easiest ones is to take responsibility of how people feel that when they're in your presence. So I had a funny call just a couple of days ago. One of my mentees, I was calling up some estate agents for them, and they were quite relieved that there are some estate agents that were also really rude to me. I mean, literally calling up, asking about a property. Why wouldn't they be polite? But some of them are not. And that's perfectly fine. But what she was really interested in is I still behaved in a way that I felt was really friendly, was very warm. I asked people's names. I repeated their names. I spoke with a smile. And even though they were a bit offy, I didn't let that affect me. I made sure that I speak to everyone in a really approving way. And even so, I had another business meeting with a property owner that we're doing a purchase lease option with. And while we were having the meeting, it was a coffee meeting, and the waitress, really lovely lady, I always ask their names. Because again, every single person that you are surrounded by, you want them to feel good. And he was kind of like, oh, wow, you know, you have really made an effort with these people. And he took that as something very positive. And that's something that if we leave everyone feeling better having met you, how do you think that ripple effect is going to spread? It's clearly going to be really positive. People are going to want to naturally spend more time with you. And that's something I've seen other people advise, that when you're starting to do a JV, watch how they treat the staff in the room. Because I only want to work with the people who are treating the staff really well. And that says a lot about somebody. So really remember that, understand how you can take that responsibility. So do consider going forward, as far as taking responsibility goes. Are you following up with deals? Are you following up with phone calls? Are you following up with the person you met at the networking event last night? Have you got a problem tenant relationship? Go and fix it. Take that responsibility. Remove the ego and just think, what can I do to really improve this ripple effect going away from me? How are your finances? Can you take more responsibility from those? When you blame others, you give up your power to change. And that was by Robert Anthony. When you blame others, you give up your power to change. And then another one that I just really love is to remember, every decision you make sends ripples through your property journey. What ripples are you creating today? So do find me wherever you found me, whether it's YouTube or on the podcast. Please do tell me something, an inspiring story of where you've taken responsibility. And please remember, property success isn't just about what you do, it is about how you think. And when you combine a strong strategy with an unstoppable mindset, there's no limit to what you can achieve. So do reflect on today's episode. And as always, please consider one action that you can take away and apply into your life, into your property journey today, to move you closer to your property goals. And in the spirit of helping others and making others feel good in your presence, is there someone you know who's struggling in their property journey? Please do share this episode, because it could be the game changer that they need. And remember, as we talked about, the more people we can help, then the greater actually our own wealth becomes. And that's in every sense of the word. Growing this community means growing the potential we all have to succeed together. And finally, as always, your mindset is your greatest property. Keep building it.